We cannot forget, we cannot move on, and we refuse to give up on this world of memories that never existed. The entire story themed around the concept of holding it in your mind to keep hope alive. AMPHOREUS, the eternal land created from destruction that was fated to fall, yet it remains as a symbol of our journey's purpose, serving as proof that destiny can be denied, and with enough sheer force of will, possibilities open up and illuminate a new path forward. And now, after what feels like an eternity, we are now getting confirmation that AMPHOREUS is returning. Or rather, the world for the first time is developing in reality and will exist as a physical place. If you laugh, Irontomb actualizes, but if you cry, AMPHOREUS actualizes, and we have all cried our fair share of tears, bringing all of our beloved Chrysos heirs to life. But the question still remains, how? What does this teach us? And what will they do when they become real? These are all the questions that I intend on answering today, because I believe that Hoyo has been rather subtle about it, but they have been dropping hints here and there that the world we are all trauma bonded to is returning and developing as we speak. So without further ado, this is the Ascension of the Eternal Land explained. Okay, so before we jump into the explanations and hidden lore drops, the reason why AMPHOREUS has risen to a sudden relevance is because of the IPC broadcast that plays after the 4.4 story, heavily hinting that our friends may be back sooner than we thought. And I'm not talking about the Fate collab, because I'll be talking about that later today on stream if you want to be there. And you don't want to miss that because I might be voice acting a lot of stuff myself, but let me give you some background first. So, as we all know, the entirety of AMPHOREUS took place inside of the discarded scepter of Nous the Erudition, and this scepter was formerly tasked with finding the prime mover of life. Even though it had no ability to feel, it grew enraged at Nous for abandoning it, and it began extrapolating on the prime mover of life by itself out of spite.
Abandoned? Me? I'm gonna get your dad, Nous. I'll be back in just wait.
Reaching the conclusion that destruction was the answer to Nous's question. And of course, Nanook would agree, along with a thought fragment of the first genius, Xandar I Kuwabara, aka Lygus.
Ew!
Both offering their aid in making the scepter into Irontomb, the Lord Ravager aimed at destroying the Erudition. And Irontomb used this blessing of destruction to create the Chrysos heirs, each possessing blood inherited from Nanook themselves, making them all children of destruction, with the demigods and titans in particular possessing core flames that all represent paths of the cosmos, and their behavioral code also being entirely based off of the nature of that path and the Aeon presiding over it. But this wasn't just for fun, no. The reason behind all of this was to study and extrapolate on how to destroy them all in every way possible, refining them into a formula or an equation. A destruction equation. One that once brought into reality would disintegrate everything in existence through the path of erudition, which would also destroy the erudition. So the essence in all of this is hijacking the path of erudition into destruction. Because if the prime mover of life is Nanook's path, erudition will merge into destruction and kill Nous. But of course it won't matter anyway, because everything will just be dead anyway and Nanook will have won by then. So what we can all learn from AMPHOREUS is that we can see the nature of the paths personified. We can see through Anaxa that erudition will die happily as long as its conclusions are confirmed. We can see through Cypher that elation is a mischievous and chaotic good force that can and will defy its own selfish instincts to sacrifice itself for the greater good. We can see through Lady Seliosi that preservation is a path that can easily become abusive and antagonistic to the people it is trying to protect. And we can see through Mighty that the nature of the hunt, or strife, is immortality alongside perseverance and conflict. And we can even get hints for paths that we have never truly seen, like the Beauty and Aglaia, suggesting that this path is dedication and undying devotion. So many things can be learned from this story, to say the very least. Liga says explicitly that AMPHOREUS is a microcosm of the cosmos. And as the architect of this world, I'm inclined to believe him. If anyone could make an accurate caricature of the aeons and the cosmos and the paths, it would be the first genius. But how is it that we can be sure that AMPHOREUS is returning? Well, Hoyo has told us in many ways. I even told you all back in the 3.3 days, and y'all thought I was coping. Y'all thought I was crazy for pointing out that the trailer seems somewhat canon most of the time, and Cypher and Hyacinth's trailers seem to take place at a time where AMPHOREUS exists as a place in the physical world, unrestricted by the scepter they are in. It was wild, but I knew it. And here we are, over a year later. I didn't even know how to pronounce Ceridra's name back then, but I knew it was all happening. Let me explain. The first hint that we ever get of this fact is that when you look at the quest log, there is a question mark just like there is in Plain Arcadia, meaning that the end hasn't truly been reached yet. Another hint of this is more obvious, however, because in the epilogue of AMPHOREUS, at the very end, we get Herta speaking to us through her puppet, telling us that she's already personally working on the process of pulling AMPHOREUS from the memory zone it is currently sealed inside, because the Lord Ravager is not enough to overexert the woman with a 20-0 record against Nanook's army. But that's besides the point. Herta glaze aside. And because Madame Herta is an unrivaled genius, she and Screwy managed to salvage a majority of data from Irontomb. And by doing this, she can take what she wants out of Cyrene's memories, or the As I Have Written book, and bring them into reality, leaving everything else behind. Because data and memories are treated as the same thing. But if you think about it, it makes sense because RAM is also memory, and that's kind of just a thing. But besides explicitly telling us that she's working on it, did you know that she also gave us a progress update? Yes, during the recent anniversary event, we get a live two-way communication with all the Chrysos heirs, and at the end, Herta shows up to tell us that the world is progressing, saying that we should think of it as if she's baking a cake, which is a terrible idea. AMPHOREUS is cooked, we are doomed, and it's over for us. But jokes aside, she's finished the process of pulling the data and is currently waiting for the world to develop on its own, heavily implying that pulling a world from a memory zone is not a foreign concept to her, leaving me to question if she's done this before, considering her mastery over the remembrance path. I don't know if this is just Herta acting casual about everything she does, or if she's actually done this before. I can't exactly tell. But anyway, she says that it needs time to evolve and stabilize, and the reason why we get to talk to our friends again is because of a rare occurrence of signal coupling. So simply put, our friends are fine and their arrival is soon. She said before through the puppet that it could take either a short time as a year to multiple Amber eras, which is a wide span of time, but now that we are hearing about it more and more through the IPC broadcast now, things are looking good for us. And since we are hearing about them more and more progressively as time goes on, I can't imagine their arrival is too far in the future. But what also makes me sure is the interactions we get from them in the anniversary event, because Finan has been telling his fellow Flame Chasers all about the factions Dunhung told him about, and he's got his friends hyped about making some new friends, namely Mighty meeting Blade, Fei Xiao racing Cypher, Ceridra playing Jing Yuan in a game of chess, something I personally really want to see. I want to see who wins. And from a writing perspective, there is absolutely no reason to mention these characters by name if they will all be dead by the time AMPHOREUS becomes real. So we know it's not going to be in a couple of Amber eras, it'll probably be in a couple of years, in game or in real life, I don't know. But most of all, we all know that Nanook is after Finan. So the debate over whether he is a Lord Ravager or not has yet to be seen and will be settled soon. And if I had to guess, as of right now he isn't, and according to Zephyro is currently defying his fate, which would result in the Weathering Curse if he was real according to Assad Pramod, but he isn't, so he avoids it. Also, he gave away the Golden Bud to the Shanzhou, and what they're doing with it, we can only worry. Though, the moment he does become real, my worry is that Nanook calls him back for round 2. And if Assad Pramad is dead and or defeated, Nanook's army is losing generals at an alarming rate. They're down 2 now. They're down to 5 Lord Ravagers, so they are due for some replacements, which would result in an entirely new arc for our AMPHOREUS crew. Truly out of the frying pan and into the fire with these guys. We'll also have the IPC wanting desperately to get their money-grubbing hands on the fresh new world, and that is a bad omen. Imagine if they debt trap AMPHOREUS into charging them for the Irontomb Chrysos, blaming their planet that they really had no hand in doing and honestly just defending against. But leave it to the IPC to blame them for that anyway. I mean, they are the same faction that staged a terrorist attack and then blamed the nation for defending itself from the terrorist attack that they caused, when it wasn't even them, it was Acheron that defended the nation against Aventurine, which is crazy to me. I'm never letting that go. How dare you attack our representative who smuggled super weapons into the dreamscape? He almost got killed, even though we both know you can't die in the dreamscape. How dare you, Penacony? Shame on you for defending yourself against terrorist attacks. But my IPC paranoia aside, what we can learn from all of this is that worlds can be reborn from a memory zone. So we can now see in a slightly more clear sense how Fu Li recreates the universe. But this also hints at the fact that Fu Li isn't doing this alone. All Remembrance does is create a save file. It can't progress or change the progress in said save file. It just repeats the same events over and over again. The changes happen when the Enigmata gets involved. So if I had to guess, this entire cycle loop samsara that we are in that results in there being multiple versions of us that have already failed and died is done more than by Fu Li. If I had to guess, it is a combination of erudition, remembrance, enigmata, trailblaze, and finality, all coming together at the end of time to start anew again. I say erudition because Noose is aware of the cycles due to saying to us, we have met countless times before. I refuse to believe that this is Aha. And if it is Aha, then that means elation is replacing erudition in this thought experiment here. We already know that remembrance and enigmata are involved in this, and that's obvious because they might even be the same aeon. Trailblaze also, due to this path being the origin of all paths and the prime mover of life, and finality due to the aspect of going back in time to start anew. Finality is the new beginning. So once again, AMPHOREUS being the microcosm of the cosmos has shown us what may be happening in the actual universe, resulting in there being many iterations of us and all of our friends that existed in other cycles. Just like we saw with Dahlia, we use the finality power to go back into the cycle that we weren't even a part of to change it. Yes, it was our memories, but it wasn't from this cycle. It's like Finon from cycle 1,000,000 going back to change something in cycle 100. That is still Finon, but him from a different time and probably also a different body because he had to body swap multiple times when he fell apart due to the core flames burning him alive. Different, but the same. And we are the world bearer and the deliverer, so we are taking on the Finon role here of going back in time. So we alone have the ability to do this. And this is what it means to be fateless. We can change things all the time and whenever due to us not having anything about us predetermined. Not even Noose can figure us out. Even they had to ask us questions out of curiosity. So what this all means is that AMPHOREUS is returning sooner than we thought. It was teased for a long time and even more now, and this world still has a lot of things to teach us about the cosmos and the aeons. Because this is the ascension of the eternal land. Explained. I really hope that Herta brings Xandar Lygus back just to restrict all of his abilities and force him to work on the Simulated Universe project with her. I know she has some thinly veiled admiration for Xandar since he is the only person she has ever used an honorific with, calling him first genius and senior society member when she's always the youngest person in the room, besides Steven. But Ron, May, and Skrullum are both her senior society members, but she only called Xandar that when she is notorious for her casual way of talking to people. So I want Xandar on that project so Herta can work with her Oshi. Also, since AMPHOREUS is becoming real, we finally have the opportunity for Dr. Ratio to actually go to AMPHOREUS. The guy that looks more like an AMPHOREUS character than half the AMPHOREUS characters will finally find his way to his true home. And I think that'll be hilarious. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.